So I'm going to go through this PowerPoint that I normally would show at the beginning of class. And as obviously you can see, it's a video, but the PowerPoint is actually there just by itself at the beginning of the whole shooting match. I created this PowerPoint many years ago because at the time there was an academic, chief academic officer in Jefferson County Public Schools by the name of Dewey Hensley. And Dewey had come up with this idea of PLCs, professional learning communities. It wasn't his original idea, but he was trying to implement it into Jefferson County Public Schools. Today, the PLC is everywhere. But as I told Dewey at the time, and I tell you today, the PLCs could not exist without teachers having PLNs, professional learning networks. So let's go through, discover what that means, and then show you how you are going to create your professional learning network for this class. By the way, this would work for anyone, not just teachers, but anyone who is a part of a profession. This is how you can create a space for you and your colleagues to share ideas and understandings. So let's go to some definitions. First of all, here's what teachers are expected to know. What is a PLN? It's any group of people sharing the same profession or interests. This class is an example of a PLN. Your department is an example of a PLN. Your grade group is an example of a PLN. Any group of people who are working together that need to share ideas is a PLN. So what are the 5 apostasies? You can't solve your problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Thank you, Albert. What's an apostasy? Well, it's an abandonment of what one has voluntarily professed, a total desertion of or departure from one's previous understandings or practice. In other words, we're creating something new and different to address a problem of how do we communicate with each other the information that isn't just coming from the central office folks. This is information that we as professional teachers crowdsource and share with our other professionals. So let's look at what the apostasies are for PLNs. Teachers no longer have to wait for a system to identify or solve their problems. They're empowered to do it for themselves. We find something good out there. We find a better way of using our Google Classrooms. We find a better way of teaching mathematics. We have a way to capture that and share it with our other professionals that are in a part of our school. Or teachers in geographically isolated places are no longer intellectually or professionally isolated. We have this idea that we push the internet out to everybody in the state of Kentucky, but are we then making sure that people are utilizing those amazing resources that live out there in the internet to improve their profession in their building? Teachers could have their professional questions and problems solved now, not at a predefined space and time. You don't have to have a gold day. You don't have to go to a PD. You can get ideas and answers on your own or from your fellow PLN participants. That's the whole idea. We can harness the collective intelligence rather than be restricted by our prescriptive job titles. What does it take to teach a child who has a learning disability in a regular classroom? How do we solve those kinds of issues? When we have the ability to reach out to lots and lots and lots of other people, in other words, crowdsourcing. And that's the last one. We have a way now to crowdsource ideas and content. This is called frictionless media. Did you know it actually had a term? The internet allows us to form PLNs with more people and much more easily, a frictionless media for communication. It's a way to keep the ideas alive. If you're at a conference or a PD, it keeps the intellectual conversation alive. Why email when you can text or Twitter? One-to-one versus one-to-many. In other words, when I sit and text you, You know, it's a conversation going on between you and I. What if I wanted to have a conversation with everybody? One of the things that I really do like about the Google Classroom is it has fully embraced the one-to-many concept. And I think it's probably one of the best things about the Google Classroom. By the way, that noise in the background is my mouse hitting my standing desk. The main aim, how do we do this? This is called knowledge management. You connect people to quality knowledge as well as people to people in order to increase understanding. Unfortunately, Twitter has become, it's not quite a garbage dump, but we have to understand how to harness the power of Twitter so that the garbage that's out there doesn't seep in to what we're trying to do. We have to know how learning content is used and distributed by learners, that it might be more important than how it is designed. Excuse me. And of course, all this has been because of the rapid development of Web 2.0. It's almost a given now. I don't know why we even talk about Web 2.0 anymore. Everything you play with these days is Web 2.0. So here's the stages. The first part of it is people lurk, people skim, people look around. When you create a PLN and invite people into it, what they're going to do is they're just going to look in and see what you're doing. Then they'll see that you've got this Twitter account. They'll join it. They'll start seeing what you have put in there. Then they'll start asking you for the help that they would need to help understand how to do it. When you see this kind of thing, you're knowing that it has started to grow. Things are happening. You start a group discussion. And then you start joining every social network possible. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Be more judicious. And then you can get overwhelmed and you drop the whole thing. You've got to find the right balance. And that's why I picked the things that are in this course. I think they represent that balance. Now, you can disagree, and that's fine. But I think, for a beginning, this is the right balance. How are we going to start? Well, this is where we'll start. We'll start with something called a PB Works. We will create something called a wiki. The wiki was created by a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Wales. Jimmy Wales was a surfer dude, believe it or not. He was a surfer dude who dropped out of Stanford. Why does everybody who drops out of Stanford go on to become famous in the world of technology? Have you noticed that? Steve Jobs, drop out from Stanford. The list goes on and on. Dave Weiner. Dave Weiner was probably the only guy, and we're going to talk about him much later. He was a student at MIT, but so many of these billionaire types have dropped out of Stanford. Okay, so he created the wiki. What's it mean? Where did it come from? So the urban myth is that when Jimmy Wales would fly into Honolulu to go surf the waves, by the way, he was a trained coder at Stanford before he dropped out. He would try to catch a taxi, and he noticed that the guys that wait there to help you get into your cabs, I don't know if you have ever seen this, it doesn't happen here at Louisville. It does happen in Toronto when I have flown into there. There's a guy standing there, and he says, "Cab?" And then he waves a cab in for you. Well, anyway, he noticed that these guys were yelling, "Wiki, wiki." And he asked them, what does wiki mean? And they said, quickly. And so he adopted that as his term for the thing that he created. What is a wiki? A wiki is nothing more than a way for people to collaborate on the web. As simple as that. Why do we use PB Works? PB Works is one of many different flavors of wikis. We like PB Works because it's flat HTML, and without doing a whole class on coding. Flat HTML just means what you put in there is what you get. You don't have to understand Adobe Style Sheets. You don't have to understand any of that stuff. Just put it in and you've got it. So that's why we use PB Works. We'll be using our good friend Twitter. We know Twitter has gotten sort of this little bird ought to have a black eye. He's gotten sort of a reputation. And unfortunately, it's because it's been so politicized. So we're going to make sure we understand how to control for all that inside our Twitter account. If you want to make your Twitter account political, go for it. But I wouldn't make it political if you're going to be sharing it in school. This is an old idea. Oops, and I shouldn't say wiki spaces up here. That's okay. This should say PB Works. Who I listen to. What is that, Steve? Well, That is an idea called RSS. What is RSS? Well, we're going to jump through it, and then we're going to do a little bit more here. We're going to be using Twitter as the human search engine. We're going to be using RSS. Oh, by the way, here's a whole bunch of really good places to start for Twitter accounts. What is RSS? Well, RSS stands for Real Simple Syndication. It was created by a young man by the name of David Weiner at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. What is it, Steve? It's a podcast. It's what makes podcasts work. It is what makes YouTube work. What it basically does is, in the old days, I used to have to teach you the code RSS. Got a lot of things thrown at me on that particular lecture day. RSS allows you to subscribe to something that exists on the web, and then when that person who owns that communication, that video file, that audio file, whatever it might be, when they upload a new one, the RSS automatically reaches out and says, hey, this person has put something new in the content out here for you to see or hear or read. That's RSS. Here's one of my faves, Pinterest. Well, we know what Pinterest is. Pinterest is curation, probably the best curation tool that I know of. It is just crazy fun, but here's the power of it. You see right here? If you go to this site inside of Pinterest, it has tons and tons and tons of resources that are there for you with educators. Or, as you'll see when we look at Pinterest, all you got to do is just go in and do a search, and you'll find it. So here we go. If we can have learning networks that are active, in other words, stuff shows up, and we have people involved in them, then we have a way of really growing out the possibility of PLC so they don't just end up being the pass-through. Here is the information from the central office PD people on what we need. Fine, put it in there. But also realize that there's more, that is deeper and richer out there. What is the way to grow it? I can ask my network and get recommendations. I can find more sources. The cloud, well, we know what the cloud does. It makes sharing easier. Make the interwebs human again. You're not alone. Alrighty. That is everything we need to know for the beginning of our course. I'll see you when you jump into the next one.